Today, Donald Trump played the arsonist, and the Trump-run Republican Party showcased a version of this phenomenon. Meeting separately with House and then Senate Republicans this afternoon, 3 blocks from where Trump was arraigned last year in connection with his efforts to overturn the 2020 election he lost. Trump's trip to Washington, D.C. today amounted to equal parts chest-thumping, America bashing, and more bizarre, incoherent ramblings about dating Nancy Pelosi and the GOP convention host city. The press spin for today was that Trump would engage in forward-looking discussions of policy, but Hannibal Lecter kept coming up, as well as Trump's obsessive animosity toward the Department of Justice. Politico reports that the immediate aftermath of his 34 felony count in New York, in that period, Trump sought to harness the powers of Congress to fight on his behalf. His first call was to, you guessed it, Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House. Now, Trump's henchmen, many of whom made a show of appearing in their matching red ties in court last month, they're mobilizing, not to pass any laws to help the American people, but in an all-out effort to protect Trump, to help him evade accountability. Republican lawmakers are trying everything. They're being really creative, drawing up bills on jurisdiction, weaponizing appropriations, and expanding blockades on President Joe Biden's appointees. While Republicans do everything except govern, everything in their power to help Trump evade accountability, avoid the rule of law, remember, they didn't always bow quite this low at Donald Trump's feet.
We're on the verge of having someone take over the conservative movement and the Republican Party who's a con artist.
Donald, you're a sniveling coward, and leave Heidi the hell alone.
I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him.
All I can say is count me out. Enough is enough. I've tried to be helpful.
We were really trying hard to figure out how do we hold a president accountable that put all of our lives at risk.
There's no question, none, that President Trump is practically and morally responsible for provoking the events of the day. No question about it.
All those people are engaged in a project to make you think that we're crazy. They said those things. They said those things, and then they fell into line. Democrats, for their part, today welcomed Trump to Capitol Hill in a very different way. This mobile billboard, for instance, sent out by the Democratic National Committee, had video from the deadly insurrection playing on a loop to remind the GOP what exactly happened on January 6th, what exactly they've endorsed for president in 2024. 3.5 years later, the blood has been cleaned up, the broken glass has been swept away, the physical damage repaired, but the disgrace and the trauma for the men and women of law enforcement who protected the Republicans and the Democrats that day endures. In fact, Donald Trump was protected this afternoon by some of the very same police officers and law enforcement officials who bravely stood between his violent supporters and those Republican lawmakers who rolled out the red carpet for him today. This is well and truly the Trump Republican Party. So we start today with some of our most favorite reporters and friends. With me at the table, NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard is back. Also joining us, former lead investigator for the January 6th Select Committee, Tim Heaphy, and the executive director of Republican Voters Against Trump, the publisher of The Bulwark, Sarah Longwell. Sarah, I start with you because I think only your pain matches or maybe exceeds mine at what all these men and women have become. Because I was never on board, right? I never thought Trump was a good idea. It's divided circles of former friends, divided family and friends and neighbors. I mean, I've always thought it was a bet with the devil. But I guess the point in that match is so did they. So did Ted Cruz. So did Marco Rubio. So did Nancy Mace. So did Mitch McConnell. But they did something very different today. Do you understand why?
Do I understand why they're doing it? I mean, no, I can't, because I'm like you, right? I mean, I both thought Trump was unfit from the beginning and took people like Marco Rubio and so many of the other candidates in 2016, Ted Cruz, doesn't matter. Everybody was on our side back then. J.D. Vance, they all thought the exact same way we did. Some of them called themselves never Trumpers like us. And then we watched them for political expediency, for their own professional growth, not only tolerate Trump, make common cause with him, but celebrate him, become his biggest lickspittles and toadies. And there's something particularly painful, I think, about them cheering him as he returns to the Capitol, where, as Nancy Mace said, he threatened their lives. And one of the things that strikes me, I run this group, Republican Voters Against Trump, and one of the number one reasons that people who voted for Trump twice say that they will not vote for him again is because he lied about the results of the election, saying that it was stolen, and then he fomented an insurrection. And for a lot of these Republicans, that was their red line. That was the end of it for them. And the fact that these people are now willing to make videos, put their faces on billboards saying, absolutely not, Trump's unfit, I won't vote for him. They have the courage to do that. They're willing to make that case. But members of Congress, people who purport to be devout Christians, who purport to back the blue, who purport to stand for the rule of law, they're there to cheer Donald Trump, the guy who was morally and temperamentally responsible for the insurrection. It is stomach churning and it is gaslighting. It is the kind of emperor has no clothes kind of phenomenon where it is just important on days like this that we remind people we are not the crazy ones. They are the craven ones.
Oh, I love that. And lickspittle is a word that isn't in enough circulation. Thank you for invoking it here at the top of the hour. I want to show you an ad that the Biden campaign put out and just get your reaction to sort of its salience. This is on January 6th.
On January 6th, Donald Trump lit a fire in this country.
140 officers were injured. The siege lasted for 7 hours.
Stoking the flames of division and hate. Now he's pouring gasoline.
They were unbelievable patriots.
Pledging to pardon the extremists who tried to overthrow our government.
We will give them pardons.
Inciting them to try again. There is nothing more sacred than our democracy. But Donald Trump's ready to burn it all down.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
I mean, Sarah, this was released today. Trump has actually gone farther. He's called them warriors around the anniversary of D-Day. This seems to speak to that gut rejection of some of the voters that you talk to a lot. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think this is good. I think you have to keep the salience of January 6th very high for voters, because the fact is, people have short attention spans. I do the focus groups multiple times a week. I talk to voters all the time. And I've done focus groups now on shortly after January 6th happened, and then on the anniversary, sort of every year now for several years. And it's been stunning to watch people change how they talk about January 6th, because, of course, when it happened, people were disgusted. They were sad. They thought the events Republicans were so appalled that they had to say that it was actually Antifa and Black Lives Matter, right? They weren't even willing at the time to say that these were actually Trump supporters because it was such a bad thing to happen. But they have moved to a place where as sort of time has healed some of those wounds for them. And they've been sort of, by the right-wing infotainment media, by Republican politicians, they've kind of moved to this place now, not just of acceptance of what happened on January 6th, but of celebration, that this was an act of patriotism. But that is for core MAGA voters. And so for the swing voters who are still repelled by what happened that day, for the people who maybe aren't big fans of Joe Biden, but need to be reminded that Donald Trump is unfit and too dangerous to be allowed back in the White House, it is essential to remind them about January 6th, because it's just one of those things where it matters when people keep the salience high, but as the salience falls, people forget about it. So it's good to remind people.
Well, Tim, and I think our best example of how that worked, of what Sarah's talking about, was the January 6th Select Committee's public hearings were the summer before the midterms. And we learned after an election what was on voters' minds. But democracy was much higher than a lot of sort of pundits expected it to be. One of the factors, along with Dobbs, that helped blunt the audacious predictions of a massive red wave, which was more like a drip, drip. The facts of January 6th include Trump's voracious appetite for the violence. Let me play some of Cassidy Hutchinson's testimony about Trump's enthusiasm for the removal of the mags, which are there for one reason, to make Secret Service aware of anyone carrying a weapon.
When we were in the offstage announce tent, I was part of a conversation. I was in the vicinity of a conversation where I overheard the president say something to the effect of, I don't effing care that they have weapons. They're not here to hurt me. Take the effing mags away. Let my people in. They can march to the Capitol from here. Let the people in. Take the effing mags away.
This was always, to me, the smoking gun, if you will, of Trump's enthusiasm for his supporters to both be armed, to be among them, and that they proceed armed to the Capitol to do his bidding.
Right. Exactly right, Nicole. In addition to that clip from Cassidy in the hearings, we also developed this really powerful vignette of the January 5th, the evening before the attack on the Capitol. The president was in the Oval Office. He gathered a group of young staff, and the door was open, and he could hear the January 5th crowd, the Ali Alexander, Mike Flynn speeches. And he said to the room, people are very angry. They're extremely upset about this election, mindful of the energy in the crowd and the potential for it to turn violent. So there were repeated instances of his specific knowledge of danger and his desire to go. I mean, what struck me about these images from today is he's doing today what he wanted to do that day, right? His intention was to go to the Capitol and buttonhole Republican members of Congress somehow that he thought would be subject to the political pressure that he was exerting on the vice president and others, and some desperate attempt to prevent the certification and the transfer of power. It is shockingly ironic that 3.5 years later, he's making that trip, not on the day of the certification, but getting a much more favorable audience from these Republican members. That is precisely what he intended to do had he been successful in that crazy plan to travel to the Capitol on January 6th.